Welcome to the first stop of the GWA Wingfoil World Cup in Cape Verde. It's the second consecutive year that Cape Verde has hosted the wingfoil wave discipline. Ponta Preta's peeling right-handers are ideal for the discipline. This year, the break on the idyllic island of Sal delivered some of the best waves ever seen in competition. Last season's world champions Muna White and Wesley Brito began their journeys with wins in Cape Verde. Day one opened with huge swells and lighter winds, but it posed no problems for the wingfoilers. World champion Wesley Brito survived an early scare when he squeaked through his heat against the youngest rider in the competition, Britain's Leon Scheel. The youngster ran the world champion very close. Day two, and things started to get more serious. It dawned with the same pumping swell which had become more orderly overnight. The cross-offshore breezes started at 18 knots and were forecast to build throughout the day. France's Benoit Carpentier faced countryman Clement Rosero in the opening matchup. Rosero, who lists big wave surfing among his many talents, put on a good show, but Carpentier just had the edge and advanced to the next round. US teenager Cash Bazzola burst onto the wingfoil scene last year. His 9.87 ride marked him out as a real contender for the win. He then capped that heat though with the first perfect 10 wave of the competition. World champion Wesley Brito's travails continued when he faced 16-year-old Axel Gerard. Gerard was on a mission and chalked up several big wave scores. Brito didn't have any answers and suffered an early exit that marked the first big upset of the competition. Cash Bazzola was at it again in his quarter-final showdown with Benoit Carpentier. The pair went wave for wave and Carpentier pushed the young US rider. But Bazzola's wave riding was next level and he closed out the heat with another perfect 10 that ensured he progressed. France's Marlo Granole is a former surf freestyle world champion and surfing is in his blood, so riding the Ponta Preta break on a wingfoil was a dream come true. The judges loved his committed flowing style riding the critical section of the wave and rewarded the teenager with another perfect 10. South Africa's Nathan van Vuuren is a new face on the exploding wingfoil scene, but he doesn't lack experience in the waves and it showed in his quarter-final face-off against Axel Gerard. Both put big numbers on the board with their exceptional surfing, but it was van Vuuren who eked out the win by just 0.13. The Maui-based Canadian Finn Spencer came up against his close friend Cash Bazzola in the first of the semi-finals. Spencer chalked up some big scores for his committed riding. By contrast, Bazzola was on fire and pulled off some risky airs in the pocket. The judges rewarded him with a 9.53 and a place in the final. Marlo Granole faced Nathan van Vuuren in the second semi. Van Vuuren showed he could give his rival a run for his money in Ponta Preta. Granole opened with a banger for 9.63 and just kept on earning big scores for his flowing surfy style. And ultimately it was a mix of that beautiful flowing style and critical manoeuvres that booked the Frenchman the second spot in the final. So Finn Spencer and Nathan van Vuuren found themselves in the mini-final, the runoff for third and fourth places. The young Canadian came out charging, full of commitment, and the judges rewarded his endeavour with some solid scores. But van Vuuren came out and hooked into a big wave that netted a solid 9 points, and he never really looked back. Another wave, another big score, this time 8.17, and that score would seal the deal for the debutant, who would take third on the podium. The final was between the competition's two big hitters, Cash Bazzola and Marlo Granole. In the opening exchange, they rode back-to-back waves and earned almost identical high 8-point scores. Bazzola found himself struggling to find the waves he wanted, while Gunole went to town. Eventually, in a bid to get back on terms, Bazzola ditched his wing and went for the barrel. It was an epic, spontaneous move. Gunole, meanwhile, had a contrasting surfy style and was more consistent. Even though he fell later in the heat, Gunole managed to recover and avoid the rocks, and it would mean he took the win by the finest of margins.
Yeah, it feels pretty good to win the first event of the season in some of the best conditions I've ever seen in my entire life. Even for surfing, for winging, everything, this place is just crazy. So yeah, it feels pretty good to start the the year with a bang, so it's pretty nice.
The first women's semi-final was a match-up between the Netherlands' Bowie van der Linden and Hawaii-based Moona White. The Americans' impeccable wave selection and her flow in the critical section of the waves earned her the win and the first spot in the final. But Bowie van der Linden was only off by a small margin after her final wave earned a 7.67 and almost caused an upset. Multiple world champion 17-year-old Nia Suarez of Spain found herself in a showdown with her compatriot Elena Moreno in the second semi. Suarez was runner-up on the wave tour last year and has been training in Hawaii to improve her wave game. Moreno had already lit up the competition with her no-holds-barred riding style that saw her take a couple of big falls. Her commitment, though, was rewarded by the highest score of the women's competition, and that saw her advance to the final. So Suarez faced Bowie and van der Linden in the runoff for third place. Van der Linden, a former surf freestyle world champion, tried to impress the judges with some airs on the face. But Suarez had the conditions dialed and notched up a series of big scores to comfortably take the win and third place in Cape Verde. In the final between Moona White and Elena Moreno, the pumping sets that had graced much of the day were becoming harder to find. The American athlete still managed to put some solid numbers on the board, but her renowned wave selection seemed to have deserted her. Just when she needed it most, she missed the biggest set of the heat. Moreno, meanwhile, was charging. On one set wave, she went over the falls and ended up in the impact zone. But she fought her way out and racked up some big numbers, closing out the final with an 8.13 ride that would earn her her first World Cup win.
Lots of crashes, lots of nerves to handle over there, so it's an experience I'm not going to forget, and it's a pleasure to be here.
That's it for another year from Cape Verde. Ponta Preta delivering the greatest conditions seen in a wingfoil wave competition. Our winners rose to the challenge. Catch us again for the next round in Morocco in September.